Everybody, this is episode 46 of the CyberBulls. Today I have the pleasure of guest moderating so that we hear a little bit more of Herbert. So here we are with Herbert, with Christian, and with Jeff. And I'm going to try to impose my German way of doing that. You'll all have a good laugh. So we're going to cover Tesla, the stock, the news. We're going to cover the stock market, and we're going to talk about a couple of societal issues. So let's get right to it.
The company and the product. Don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
As a trader, I got to take some off the table and wait for a better price.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. I enjoy listening to bears.
Looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
There we go, Herbert. Show us. Perfect. Thank you. So the first subject I want to cover is Tesla stock. Can we get this year to 300? France, and I would like to even bring up Italy because that's just been the topic of the Thursday. And then also CyberTruck. We've seen this week a camouflaged, well, not so camouflaged CyberTruck. What did you all think about that? How about we start with Herbert?
What did I think about the camouflage CyberTruck? I think it's brilliant marketing by Tesla. Just by doing that little trip and in and out, obviously, everybody, what are you doing? Here we go. Everybody's been talking about it. Oh, thank you. Everybody's been talking about it, so I think that it's working. Now, I don't know if it's gone beyond the Tesla Twitter community, but I did see that there was articles written about it. And then the other thing that makes me think about it is, does this mean that Tesla has an accessories team? Are they going to do the wrap? And I think that they do, but people have told me that doesn't make sense as a business for them to do that. But I don't know. This is brilliant.
Did any of you ever wrap a car before? A Tesla or some other car? Because, I mean, it seems like a sturdy business, right? I mean, it's very technical. You have to get those bubble outs and all that. Doesn't cost that much of money. But on the CyberTruck with these sharp corners, maybe it's easier. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's a very lucrative business. I do clear vinyl wraps for my cars. You know, the front bumper. The Chicago winters here are pretty brutal with the salt and so forth. So I do that, but I haven't done any colored wraps like that. I think the camo wrap on that Cybertruck kind of made its ass look big, that pattern. So maybe they should look at think about some other patterns.
Like big?
Yeah. And I'm not the right guy to ask. I think all my new cars, I don't even wash them. So they the dirtier the better. I just don't care. So I'm not the right guy to ask about wraps.
Yeah, I mean, you're so cheap anyway. You don't subscribe to my Twitter subscribers for $1 a month. So would you spend money? You would not, right? There we go. So let's get back to the stock.
All my free time would be taken up. I can't do it yet. I will, though.
Well, there you are. So on Wednesday, the stock finally stopped its 14 days. Was it 14 days, 13 or 14 days of going up, which was a new record. We're now around 255 going into quadruple reaching and the long weekend with Monday closed. What do you all think about the stock action?
Yeah, it was an amazing run. I think, Tesla just went on that run and it started kind of with all the announcements for GM and it kind of snowballed. Kind of rallied everything, AI, with the AI play, and it kind of just, when Tesla moves, it really moves, right? It can be dormant for a while and then just goes on one of those runs, and every time you think it can't go anymore, it does. So I think it was awesome. I think today the market was up and Tesla was kind of flat, so maybe some profit taking there, but it's been a great run. Now I think the next leg is how long can this run go, right? Can it get to 300? The overall market's doing really well. Stocks are just melting up. And this is going to be interesting to see. I think Tesla can do it with, like we've just been talking about, the Cybertruck and things of that. And I just think now with Elon flying all over back to Europe, meeting with the Italian prime minister, doing these type of deals, it looks like, Mexico, everything is happening. And I'm sure we're going to hear announcements. So it's quite exciting. And yeah, I mean, could Tesla keep rolling? Absolutely. I think there's a good shot that maybe by the end of the year, it could be pushing that 300 or maybe more. I don't like to get too excited anymore. It's fine where it's at right now, but let's hope for the best and let's keep going. Let's keep the momentum going. Yeah.
Did you watch the short sellers? I mean, there is still short interest. I know it's little compared to the to the overall volume of Tesla, but there is quite some short interest, right?
I think by dollar amount, it's still the biggest stock short, by the dollar. Any of the mega caps, like they don't have any kind of interest like Tesla does. So I still it is much smaller than it was, but I still think it does play a role in people having to cover. Yep.
Yeah, it's not big. It's the biggest of the mega caps. It's the biggest percentage of flooding is 3.5%. It's not as big as it used to be, but there's so much option trading on Tesla that it's a factor, and that option trading, who knows what's going on there, obviously, day in and day out. But it's the most highly volume, high options traded equity ticker out there.
Yeah, did you all think, because I mean, sorry, Herbert, I'm coming to you in a second, but some of the Tesla community on Twitter has been playing for ages covered calls. Do you think that was successful in this long stroke of positive movement? I mean, were they called out? Were there people that were left on the road there, Christian?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people were called out, and I think a lot of people were surprised by the run and have lost shares in this. I don't know exactly, but I bet you a lot of people have lost shares in this run, because when it ran, it didn't stop. So if you own those calls, just from a mechanical perspective, as the stock goes up, those calls, you have to roll them, but they're very expensive. So you're kind of caught. So you almost have to just let it go. Otherwise, you're going to buy them to close and then reinitiate them out is going to be very expensive. So I do think a lot of people that are playing that strategy probably lost a lot of shares in this run. That's just my guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so my question to Herbert, because he was right on this all the time. He's been telling us since we were at 100. Alexandra, watch out. There'll be people that are running into the stock once it goes up, and they will have FOMO. So is that what happened, Herbert? Did you have the feeling that people were finally running after the stock?
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on, since I'm not moderating today.
Oh, you're drinking. Good for you.
I can be like Christian. I can drink a little bit.
So cool.
Cheers.
Cheers. So yeah, I mean, I've been saying for a long time, right? It fell from 300 to 100. It can go from 100 to 300 without any new news. We don't need the new news. I was just looking at the stock here. Of course, I dared to look back at 2022. And the 300 mark, we were there for quite a long time, a couple months at the 300 mark, right? So, that's a resistance level, I think. And from here to 300, I don't think it needs to have any news. Now, you tell me if I hear from people like some of you, like Christian and others, like say, well, it's going to take that much longer to get to this point, and we need the Q2 numbers to come out. We need these things. Why? It fell from, it was at 400, it fell to 300, it went from 300 to 100, 100 to 3. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't need anything necessarily. And in fact, where are we today compared where we were like 6 months ago? It's just tremendous new milestones we've hit continuously. So the big thing, the big difference is, again, the partnerships and the communication capitulation by the competitors. That's the thing that you're starting to watch. And what I'm seeing now, I'm starting to see Tesla analysts, financial analysts changing their tune. I'm starting to see CNBC, Jeff. Come on. Did you see that clip, Jeff? There was a clip. I think I played it where the CNBC panel basically said Tesla's an AI company, Tesla's a car company, Tesla's an everything company. And they all laughed. Yeah, they are listening to us. But this is CNBC finally talking about Tesla being, an AI company and other companies. So it's changing, right? It's happening. So I think that the capitulation by the competitors was the key thing. The narrative had changed, but I don't see why we can't get to 300, now. So a little,
I agree optimism. Jeff, what do you see coming?
I like the price action. I like, for it to take a break here, if it can consolidate and create a base. Remember how much time we spent between 160 and call it 180 and change. It was a series of time, and there was a lot of accumulation that was occurring, a great base that was created. And it finally, after the third attempt, it broke through over many months. It broke through the 200-day, and now it's successively closed over the 200 days. So that's a big deal for the stock. Technically, it was technically broken from September believe it or not, all the way up until just a week or two ago. So this is a great run. It's up. I just looked over the last 30 days. We were in the 160s, 30 days ago, believe it or not. So creating a base here would be fine. It could keep moving up too. The S&P is really hot. The NASDAQ is really hot. Doesn't mean that, it can't keep going, but I mean, I didn't envision us being up at 4,400 this quick. And like we talked about yesterday, believe it or not, the market forgot about, those harsh words from the Fed, and we'll get into that in a minute. But we'll have to see. Right now, we're a couple weeks away from the end of the quarter. We're going to get Q2 shipment numbers, and I think there'll still be a fair amount of emphasis around the gross margins. 3 weeks after that, but not as much as probably as Q1. I think the markets. I think investors are ready to kind of look past the first half as kind of like price adjustments, getting things moving. By the way, the broader auto market it had a great May. It's continuing to move and accelerate. We had some news today on that from GM and Ford.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alexandra. No, I was going to say retail sales dropped, and it looked like it was fine, but autos was strong, Jeff. Right?
Yeah.
I think so. It really buoyed the retail sales. So car sales is holding up nice. So we can get into that, and also the jobless claims. I don't know. It ticked up again a little bit. I think it was like 260,000. So maybe a little bit with the job, maybe a little slight concern. Maybe it's going to accelerate. We don't know. But it's something to watch, right?
We'll get to macro. We'll get to macro in a second. I just want to pull back. So 29 days ago was the shareholder meeting. Since then, there's clearly a focus of Elon now being involved again every day. There are new headlines, new movements, and whatever. What did you all think of this searching for a new place in Europe narrative? I mean, I was until 2 weeks ago convinced we're at Berlin. We're going to expand Berlin. That's by far big enough. And that is going to cover at least Central Europe. And now suddenly we're talking about at least one other Gigafactory. I still haven't got whether it's really a mega pack factory or mega factory, how they call it now, or whether this is another car producing factory. So what do you all think about all that?
Well, I mean, from a manufacturing perspective, I mean, first off, Elon is clearly back. Look at how many visits, how many supplier meetings, how many meetings with heads of state that have occurred. So he's clearly back, and that is actually, I think, and he self-announced that he's back, and I think that's a huge impact. What is there is a method to the order of these meetings that are occurring. He sent his team reportedly into India. There was a meeting, a couple months ago with Indonesia. There's a meeting with the head of state of South Korea. I mean, there's an order to these meetings. So, okay, where's the next Giga Asia going to be? All right, I've been meeting with these 3 heads of state, and they all know that I'm meeting with everyone else. Now look at Europe, and look at the meetings between France, between Italy, between potentially Spain. What he's doing is he's understanding like what these world leaders are willing to give up to have this next phase of manufacturing technology. Tesla's proven they're a manufacturing powerhouse, and they're working on what everybody wants to build, which is energy storage and electric vehicles. So finally, it doesn't have to be a car factory in all these different meetings and all these different heads of state. Someone can get a mega pack factory. Someone can get a charger factory. Someone will get a Giga Auto factory. There could be various things that are happening in all these different regions. And like Tesla told us, this next phase of Gigafactory production, they're probably going to do more concurrently. So I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing the activity really pick up.
Herbert?
Okay. So I think I have an idea of what's happening. So first of all, we know that Giga Mexico has been planned. They got the blueprints for that. They're moving forward. Tesla's now in a growth stage, right? So they're going to build more of these gigafactories. So he's been visiting all these countries. But I think there's a very special reason why he's visiting Europe. And that's because the European car manufacturers, right? We're talking, Mercedes and Stellantis and Volkswagen and Audi, BMW, they're in trouble. they're in really big trouble. If you look at their numbers, they're not selling in China anymore. And the Chinese car manufacturers have started to land
Enter Europe.
and start selling in Europe. And so now there's movement within the European Union to decide how we're going to protect our European car manufacturers. And they're going to decide if they're going to stop the ability for Chinese car imports. So Tesla needs to expand their factory in Europe in case that happens. And he's out there visiting these heads of state across Europe to try to make sure that doesn't happen, or at least doesn't affect Tesla as much as he might affect them. So I think that's what's happening. Like, there is movement right now with European Union. They have to make this decision. At the end of the day, they're going to have to put definitely another Gigafactory in Europe. I don't think it's going to be France. It's okay, Alexandra. It's not going to be France. It's not going to be France. It's going to be Spain.
You know how to handle me.
It's going to be Spain. And like I said, what I was saying to you yesterday was, if it is France, it's not like Elon and the Tesla team didn't do their research and found out the labor unions and the issues with the team and productivity and all that. They would have put in rules or ways to get around it. But it's not going to be France. It just won't be. He's just using that, I think, partly for Twitter, communications, and the European Union. That's the kind of stuff that he's working on. So, and to
Very
negotiate
good analysis.
with Spain,
so
that Spain will then he'll have something against Spain and others, right? Put them against each other.
Did you all pick up that video when he met the Italian Prime Minister and how heartfelt that was? I mean, she was in love. I mean, she's gonna give a heartache to all our Tesla girls, fangirls out there who are going to look at that for the blueprint. This was crazy.
Well, so let me ask you, Alexandra. So he visited Italy. How come you're not right now going, oh no, he's going to do a Gigafactory in Italy? Oh no.
Well, because I didn't live 24 years in Italy. I'm not as traumatized about Italy then. But I mean, honestly, a battery factory in France, I could actually stomach, right? It's just about the labor intensive stuff. And the north of Italy, as you know from Idra, is very, very good. They have a lot of medium-sized, very good production sites there. So I can imagine something happening in the north of Italy that has to do with manufacturing, not in the south of Italy. And Valencia, of course, Valencia is a. I mean, Spain has a couple of other problems. Every country has problems, right? But the Spanish problems are much more manageable than the French problems are. But I'm very happy that you like it. Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing could be is FSD. It could be something to do with FSD regulations and approvals, but I don't know if that's done in a European level.
Probably in Brussels.
Country.
Probably in Brussels. But I mean, he needs the Germans, the French, and the Italians on board to get anything passed in Brussels. Yes, there are, I think, 25 now, but you need the top 3, 4 in there and on your side if you want to get anything done.
What about the English? I know they broke away from the EU. England's still a very nice country, right? They're still a good economy. Any thoughts on that? Like, maybe wouldn't Britain really want them to help bolster their economy because they're having some trouble? I mean, they're separate from the EU. Or does Elon just want to stay with the EU knowing that England's kind of outside of it, and that may complicate things? I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it is. I mean, the first of all, England is obviously, they're driving on the other side of the road, so it's a different production line.
Yeah.
But the second point is there is now customs between England and the rest of the European Union. So it is a much more painful setup if you want to use Great Britain for your setup. Maybe Ireland. Ireland is quite easy on subsidies and very good fiscally. I mean, there are a couple of better states for fiscal management in Europe. Usually, what bigger companies do is they do a setup either in the Netherlands or in Ireland as the headquarter, and then have production in the cheaper labor states. So, but I doubt it will be the UK, except if they do a production line for cars with the steering wheel on the right. But good. Enough on Tesla. Let's move on, if you want, to the stock market overall, and I would like to hear your reaction. I mean, obviously we had the CyberBulls on Wednesday on the Fed, but as I thought was going to case, the market just flew over it. Didn't take that very serious, but there goes our macro specialist, Christian. Tell us.
Yeah, no, I actually caught some of the show. I thought you guys were great. I'll just say real quick, like Pal, I think he did a good job, but I'm like this market's got me so confused, and I'll freely admit it, right? The market is in melt up mode, and I don't know what's going to happen, but the market is just disregarding any worries at all, right? They're just looking through everything. So it doesn't, I just not used to like the market. We bottomed before they kind of like with the interest rate hike, the market just collapsed before the economy even looked in jeopardy, which was kind of weird. And now we're rallying before we really get a downturn, right? And the Fed cuts and we build it all back up and then go. It's like we're jumping the steps. So I don't know if the market participant has changed and the thoughts have changed, but the normal cycles look like they're being broken. Again, I can't explain it 100%, but I thought Powell was good. On the macro, I'm a little, it's weird. I get the pause, but like, I think it was kind of what you guys were saying. He's trying to like put the markets on edge, like take some of the top off to hold it back a little bit by saying we might go two more times. I think Powell is more dovish, but I think his committee is a little bit more hawkish. So he's kind of, and it's kind of all around like, he's herding cats or whatever on Twitter. I think it's more that he needs to, like Jeff always says, and I'm coming around to that, he needs to make sure that people don't get carried away. But at the same time, I have to say that inflation, the numbers are good, but they're not like great. And Powell even acknowledged that. He says there's a lot of the core that's sticky, services is sticky. So, the market might be surprised. And if the economy does stay pretty strong, rates might come into it. And if that's the case, and if inflation stays a little more stickier, I think eventually the markets are going to have to reckon that, right? Because you can't have interest rates continually going up and the broader economy not eventually feel these rates, right? If he gets up into that 5.5, 5.75, I think eventually some of this will have to be an economic, turmoil will have to develop. I don't know. So that's the way I look at it. Macro, I'm trying not to let it dominate my thoughts because the market is ripping, so I'm participating in it. But there's something in the back of my head that I still have to keep watch because I think at any time some news could come out, some bad news, and the market could take a leg lower. So I'm just being cautious here, but I love the melt up and it's awesome. But it makes me nervous at these valuations with a hawkish Fed. Usually does not spell great things in the next 6 months. But again, I love to be wrong here, and everything could be good.
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems risky. Do you think they will really raise rates again, or do you just have the feeling this was writing on the wall to keep everybody on their toes, and in the end, nothing will happen for the rest of this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. Me personally, I think they could go another quarter at the next meeting if inflation kind of just stays around here. He's already talked tough. If he just pauses again and there's no improvement on inflation, then I think he looks silly. So I think he's already backed himself into it. If the numbers stay where they are for next month and there's not really a big improvement in inflation, I don't see how he doesn't go another quarter. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff or Herbert? Yeah, go ahead, Herbert.
Yeah, let me go before Jeff. I'm not the expert in macro. You guys are. But let me just sort of share you from my perspective what's been happening. So the stock market is forward-looking. And you saw the Google at all-time high, Apple at all-time high before the Fed made a move. Everybody kind of understands already what they're expecting the Fed to do. And so if you saw the AI boom happen a month ago, and that just kickstarted everything. So I think at this point, whatever the Fed says or doesn't say, even if they raise another quarter point next time, that's built in at this point. We are headed towards a boom market. And the Fed can try their best to say words to try to calm it down. But at the end of the day, the companies out there know that we're off, that they're not expecting a massive recession anymore, that the inflation is showing that it's being tamed down. And then if what you see today is not what, like they're always looking backwards, right? It's going to be much lower in several years. And then what I've been saying last episode is that this AI boom is a bigger deal because it's going to increase productivity. And whenever you see something like this, and almost always happens just before a boom, a brand new technology comes in that then creates more productivity for all companies. And I think that that's going to be one way to help with inflation and recession. So I think that if I just look at Apple and Tesla, Apple and Google and others, they're at friggin' all-time highs. At all
I don't think Google yet,
highs.
Herbert. I don't think Google. Apple is. Google hasn't hit
Apple
an
is.
all-time high yet.
And the thing about the Apple comparison, as you and I, Christian, we've been talking about this for a long time because you know that I'm an Apple investor myself before I switched to Tesla. Apple and Tesla were very much side by side. They were maintaining their strength as being the last to fall when all the other companies started falling a year and a bit ago. They were the last to fall. And so now that Apple went back up again, I'm going, why is Tesla? It is rising and it's going to go back up. Not that it's all-time high. I don't think so, because the price cuts reduce margins and the growth prospects have been reduced. And it's a very different product segment, right? This is high-value asset cars. And so it is dependent on the interest rates. That has to stop and it has to go down before Tesla will go back up again. But if Apple can be back up at all-time high, that is your indicator that money's coming off the safety, underneath the bed cushions, and they're putting it back into the stock market.
Spirits in the market,
yeah. So it's almost like people are they're already doing things before the Fed does anything, because they can already see that the Fed's, they're not going to do anything anymore at this point, too. I mean, unless something stupid happens, but I better not say anything.
And just to put a capper on it, go ahead. Just to put a CAVA IPO, the IPO market has been dead. CAVA, which is like a Mediterranean Chipotle. I love Chipotle food. And CAVA, I've never been there, but it looks really good. And I want to get some cocks. I love Mediterranean food, some lamb. It's really good. And it came to market at 22, and it was oversubscribed. The thing rocketed up. It closed at 44. So it literally did a double today. So not only was it a successful IPO, it was a fantastic IPO. Yeah. And the market cap now on CAVA is like $5 billion. So, it raised a lot of money. So maybe new IPOs come in the market. So there is some excitement started to be generating. But again, I need to temper myself here because it seems like it's too good to be true. I agree with Herbert, though. The AI revolution might be a new paradigm like the internet was. But yeah, I mean,
and I have to give credit to Herbert, because he has been pondering us for weeks and weeks, saying, "Watch out, this is the AI revolution." And I mean, I was like, "Yeah, we've seen so many revolutions, right? Which one is next?" But I think you're actually onto something. And what I really like here about today's discussion is, obviously, Herbert still keeps an eye on Apple stock. Obviously, Christian is looking at IPOs, and I think that's good. We haven't talked IPOs for a long, long time because nobody really exciting came onto the market. So there's something happening. So one thing I want to ask you all, what is another stock or a couple of other stocks that you are watching besides Tesla? And I think we should, explain a little bit what we do, whether we are investing or whether we're just watching them. Maybe you want to start, Jeff.
Oh, sure. There's one other stock there's a number of stocks I definitely have an eye on outside of Tesla. I'm a big fan of Google, a big fan of Celsius, the energy drink. I've been in that one for a while. Actually started that in the 40s, and now it's 140. I was even in the 40s last year, I believe. So that one's doing well. The one I've I do like getting in early on names, and there's been a couple of names in the Tesla community that have done some great due diligence on a company called EOSE. Ticker EOSE, and that one has been very interesting. Started that in February, and I do want to credit Zero Sum Game and some others in the Tesla community for doing some due diligence on that. That stock's up 250% since he gave the word in February. And really, fundamentally, this company works on energy storage using different technology, and their tech right now is going to be able to scale at a much lower price point than their previous tech. They've had some funding issues. They've had some dilution issues, but they're actually working with the federal government on a Department of Energy loan. And the federal government is handing out a ton of money in this space. So if they can get some help to basically scale their production operation, their next production operation and their next design is far more efficient than what they were doing before. I mean, this stock has got a lot of room to run. It's basically running at its market cap is a fraction of its actual backlog. Its backlog is over $1.5 billion, and its market cap is just a few hundred million. So this one may have some room to run. We'll see. Not financial advice, but it's another one that I certainly have my eye on. And again, I appreciate kind of the help and support of others in doing some of the due diligence on this.
Herbert, you're all in Tesla. Are you, other than watching Apple, still, looking at other stock?
Yeah. So long answer to this, I think. So obviously every person is in a different scenario, different stage, and we all act a little different, right? I don't have the time nor the interest at this point to go and research individual stocks. And I think that you, Jeff and Christian, you guys love that, you enjoy this process, and you have, a certain amount of money, and you take a certain amount of it, just a small portion, and you play with it with these small, these stocks. Now, I am at the point where I want to find the safest investment I can think of that has the greatest chance for massive growth. So I'm not interested in the 1Z, 2Z, or 1X, 2X. I'm looking for the 10X, 20X. And so when I look at the stock market, the one that I'm most excited about is Tesla. And paradoxically, I think it's the safest stock, meaning that even though the stock fell from $400 to $100, it's still the stock price. The company's not going to go bankrupt. The company's not failing and being beaten by competitors. The company is a leader in the technology in multiple markets. So for me, I sleep very nicely at home. I go to bed and I'm feeling very nicely, even though my stock fell from $400 to $100. Now, that's not the same case for many people who bought at the $400 and they have an immediate need for the cash. So I feel for that. I'm trying not to be, I got to be empathetic for that. But for my situation, my scenario, long-term investor, I feel very safe putting my money in Tesla. Not financial advice. I mean, obviously, this is my opinion. And yet, I would not have told you the stock would have fallen from 400 to 100, and it did. So I don't know. But at the end of the day, I feel very comfortable that this stock is going to not only be at 400, but way past that. There's so many reasons why. We've been talking about this quite a bit on every show that I do. So I used to invest. I used to invest in a basket of stocks, and then depending on what your goal is, right? So you know how don't invest, have as much money in multiple stocks so that you have
diversify.
Diversify. Well, I did that. And what happens is you dilute your growth. If I'm not in the growth, I want to preserve my cash and I want to grow higher than the S&P, then I would do the diversification strategy. But I'm in growth mode. I want my money to double, triple, quadruple, 10x. And so then it becomes like, I used to invest in Costco and Johnson & Johnson, and it dilutes my growth. And so I eventually started to pare down years ago into just Apple. Now, I still do have Apple, I do have Amazon, and I do have Tesla. I do have a few others. And I say that I'm all in Tesla because it's like over 90%. But the reason I have in these other ones is because I come from Canada. I have the equivalent of an IRA. It's called an RRSPs in Canada. I cannot sell or sell or buy stocks in those accounts until I move back into Canada in the future. So luckily, it's an Apple and an Amazon, so they're doing just fine. Yeah. But why, in my mind, it's not of interest to me. I don't have the time. I don't want to be looking at little, I don't call it little, but I mean, obviously, you can make good money. I'm just saying, I just don't have that interest right now. I do 100% focus on Tesla, and I think Tesla's the one that I'm most excited about. So.
Okay, great explanation. So, Christian, you're doing the little things. Tell us about your little things.
Yeah, no, I love what Jeff said, and I respect Herbert a lot. Like, I like doing this stuff, so I like listening to conference calls. And, as much as Tesla's a great company, life is uncertain, right? So I like some diversification. I've done really well with Tesla, and I played a lot with Tesla being the main thing. But after it's had a huge run, I have a little bit of a different strategy now. So I would still own Tesla, but I still see there's so many companies in the world, right? And as Tesla may outperform all of them, that's great. But the bigger you get, and Tesla, just from, it's now an $800 billion company again, right? So if you're going to get this 10x, we're talking $8 trillion. Now, that can possibly happen. But $8 trillion is a lot of money, right? Like, so you need a lot of things to go right for Tesla. So I like to do it a little bit different. So, a company like Chipotle, just for instance, right? It's a good company. They got good
You
management.
pronounced that wrong.
Do it
I
again.
always do.
Give it to us again.
Chipotle.
Good.
Okay.
Finally.
That's not how
I
you
love the
pronounce it.
company because I love the food. I love the product. I love their app. So this is just a basic company, right? They're not changing the
app?
world.
Wait.
but
What are you talking about? What's a Chipotle app?
The app they have, it's very good. During the pandemic, that's why people were using the app. It's very well done, and it's a great
Robert,
thing. I use it all the time.
We have an AI leader, Chipotle.
Yeah, right. And they're doing things. And then so like a company like PayPal, here's a beaten down stock, right? It's been destroyed, right? I think it was like a $300 billion market cap. It's all the way now down, like it was under 100. Now it's been beaten down, but the company still does well, right? They got a lot of free cash flow. They're still growing. They're going to new management probably coming in at the end of the year. So this is one where you might be able to get a steal, right? Because it's unloved. And eventually, if it starts getting love again, and the money's there, they're profitable. So you could, maybe make it double or triple there. So it's just a different way of doing things. It keeps you kind of on your toes, looking at different opportunities. So that's just what I do, and that's just a couple of names that I'm kind of.
So your two names that you want to throw in are Chipotle and PayPal, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm doing other stocks too, but off the top of my head, I just wanted to kind of talk about them. They're kind of known and they're out there. So I mean, I'll as we go on, if we keep doing stock things, I'll mention
We're
more.
getting
But right
more
now,
out of you.
yeah, you'll get more out of me. But right
you.
now, I'm sticking stick with those two.
That's fine. Go ahead.
I've got an interesting, quick seasonal one to talk about. I don't know if it was a little bit broken last year, but for 2 or 3 years prior, from July through the end of September, DraftKings does a gigantic move leading up into the NFL football season. In some years, it's actually doubled from July through the end of September. Again, not financial advice, but that's one I kind of watch seasonally coming up, and they're doing a great job. They're expanding.
Good thing. Yeah.
Sports betting is just becoming gigantic.
Crazy.
So
it is.
That's another one.
I agree with you.
Another one to keep an eye on.
I agree. And I want to add ASTS. ASTS is mobile satellite telephone. It is what Starlink will try to do with T-Mobile, but they're still far away from where ASTS is already. They have made currently, I think it was a call from Japan to the United States via satellite, and that worked perfectly well. They don't use any carrier, so this is completely new technology. They're currently around $6. I went into that at $5. Again, like most of you, not like Christian, but like Herbert, I'm more than 90% in Tesla, but this is in my little trading portfolio, and I use ASTS, put about 25,000 in, and must be 35 or something like that now. It's not a huge position, but it's certainly something I keep an eye on, and I think they have a good potential to double and triple from here. And again, none of what we just said is financial advice. We just wanted to share some of our ideas with you. And so before we move on, go ahead, Herbert.
I was just going to ask you guys, I mean, I would invest in any Elon Musk company.
Oh yeah, sure.
We can only do one. We can only get into one. Well, you could do SpaceX, but it takes a lot of maneuvering, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, it doesn't really take that much of maneuvering. Just so that you know, there is a duo of people out there that at least one of the two you all know, and they are doing these private placements. But you have to be an accredited investor. Usually, that means by tranches of 250,000. There are regularly SpaceX tranches. There have been now one tranche for Redwood Materials, which I mean I know is not an Elon company, but it's close enough. There has been some talk about Neuralink, but that Neuralink stuff was smaller that came up, and it seems to have been former employees who had stock and are now out of the company trying to sell their stock, which is something that's borderline. I don't really know how this all works. I've never touched that, but there are small chunks around like that. But I would say if people want to do that, they can approach us and we can give them the names of the people that do that you can get there, but you really have to prove that you're an accredited investor having more than, I think, $1 million in net worth on top of your primary residence. So this is really for the bigger stomachs.
Go ahead, Herbert. I cut you off. Go finish your thought. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was, so You were saying, I think one of the comments meant everything you said is absolutely true. Okay, I'm not, and there's nothing anybody here said that's wrong. There's nobody wrong. Okay, but when you said something like, you're looking at Tesla, it's already at a $600-800 billion company. It needs to become an $8 trillion company. Well, first of all, Apple's the number one largest company in the world. It has the most shareholders. So clearly, if you're looking for a 10x, yeah, you can go for the small guys, right? Startups. But the risk of that is so high because you have the risk is so high because these companies can die. They can lose very quickly. And that's why I'm saying that Tesla kind of has the best of both worlds. It's like an Apple. It's like it's like a tier one company at that level, and it's clearly the leader in the brand. It's got a massive market that's doubling. In fact, Apple, that's why I left, is that their market is no longer growing, although they're a great company. They will double. I love Apple. We'll never not stop loving Apple. But Tesla is just so the safe company at that large area. So like you said, okay, and maybe it is hard. Maybe it'll just double.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because it's a Elon Musk-led company, because they're a technology company, an innovation machine, it's crazy what they're doing. And they're not one company anymore, right? They're like, as we all know, 5 to 10 companies. And at any moment, they can announce a new product, a new market, and then all of a sudden it's like it's like a brand new company. So why would I invest in something like Chipotle when Tesla themselves could launch a restaurant business, because they're going to put a restaurant in every supercharger, and imagine the growth from one restaurant to 10,000 restaurants globally. Okay,
I agree.
That is
let's not go
Tesla's
to the restaurant,
business.
Tesla restaurant. Yeah, let's get this other stuff done first.
So I'm not interested in restaurants. I'm a tech guy. I love tech, and so I like tech that is safe. Because obviously there's some tech that you're taking a bet on.
And this is I just like some easy businesses. Like Tesla's a great company. I get it, and it could be $8 trillion in 5 years or 10 years. But I want to sleep at night. So owning like a drink like a Celsius, right? Or owning like a Chipotle, or owning an Apple, right? Like these are great companies too. So maybe they're not as innovative as Tesla, but maybe they're going to give you a steady return. They buy back their stock. I'm saying there's something to be said for something like that. They have their place in a portfolio. I know this is basically a Tesla channel, but for Cyber, we're kind of just opening up a little bit. I think it's good to just kind of talk about this stuff. So I totally understand what you're saying, Herbert. It's just the law of large numbers, right? So Apple is 3 trillion market cap now. So if they double, that means they're worth 6 trillion. So if you think of it like you do, you're buying a business. When someone buys, Apple stock, if it eventually gets to 6 trillion, what they're saying is, I believe that Apple is worth $6 trillion. That's a huge amount, and I'm willing to pay that now. And when you think of that, you're like, okay, what is this going to return? Is it going to be 12 trillion in 10 years? Like your returns get knocked down. Now, unless they come out with this great product with the goggles and it's a game changer, it's not going to do too much.
They don't need to. You know why,
Just
Christian?
keep buying back their stock. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's a safe
dividends
investment
and
then.
buybacks is all they're doing to make that stock rise. And I'll tell you, Alexandra, that's the one thing I am so upset about. I miss my dividends. When I was invested in Apple, I used to get wonderful dividends.
It will come.
No, I don't
come.
Okay, so can you, Alexandra, start working on that?
There's a place for dividends. Yeah, there's a place for dividends.
You mean when I'm done with everything else?
Tesla's never going to do dividends. Tesla's never going to do dividends, and I don't want them to do that.
NVIDIA pays a dividend.
But I want Tesla to please to do, something like a buyback to raise the stock price if they have extra cash. Right now, I'm not saying they're going to do it this year or next year, but at some point in the future, when they start making massive sales, a lot of cash, they should do buybacks. Once they do buybacks, oh my God, you were worried about a $800 billion company become 5-6 trillion? It's built into the buyback model. That's what happened to Tesla, to Apple in 5 to 10 years.
And it will come.
I'm not worried about it.
But first,
I think they can do it. I'm just saying it's hard to wrap your head around it. Yeah.
I see that. But first, I want to know whether Jeff can sleep his nights, because now we know that Herbert sleeps well, and we know that Christian sleeps well. Jeff, do you sleep well?
All I'll say is, if anybody saw like my portfolio and my risk level and my risk tolerance, I think they would be shocked. I've been I've been an insanely risky investor for over a decade. And
I have to interrupt. interrupt Jeff. People think, and I hear it every time I have Jeff on my show, he is so rational. He is so level-headed. And look the way he speaks.
He's a nutcase. He's a nutcase.
He's a freaking nutcase,
he's my preferred nutcase. I love Jeff.
He will do things that are so risky. He says things that are like, whoa, but only when he's DMing me, not in front of you guys. He won't do that.
Yeah, we'll let my hair down at some point. But yeah, no, I'm pretty risky. When it came to Tesla, and you just really, when I saw the product, first thing I did is I test drove the car in 2013, ordered it the same day. It was a Saturday. Monday I went and bought the stock, which would have been at the equivalent of around $2 a share. And I've been adding, ever since, up until even near this point of where it is right now. So I'm definitely a majority in that name. And the only thing I would, I love to talk about, like, the law of large numbers, and these are all, interesting things. And I agree with it, actually, by the way. But think of like what Tesla could do, maybe as a, eventually as a holdings company. Could some of these things be split out and be greater as a sum of the parts? You think about the kind of businesses that are being built.
Look
and
at
you think
Porsche.
about,
I mean, they took Porsche out, and suddenly they're nearly worth the double. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so a lot of things could happen over the next, 5 to 10 years. I look at companies that have an incredible ability to scale, and CEOs that have an incredible ability to scale the work that they're doing. He's not going to bat 1,000. There's going to be issues with some of the things, but when I look at what they're doing with full self-driving, that is a scalable solution. When I look at what they're doing with how they design their auto factories and their cars, they're designing them to be more efficient than the incumbent auto industry is today. So when you, as a CEO, you position your product line, your factories, what you're working on for scale, that is something you can really get your capital behind. And I think that's what a lot of the traditional analysts are missing. I also believe the traditional analysts don't have a complete ability to analyze a company like Tesla because of where they're going in all these various businesses. So I look for dislocations. I look for where people aren't looking. I look for things that people may not be noticing that they should be noticing. And that's why I love spending time in that space. And I believe they're missing Tesla right now in terms of it being an AI company. I don't believe it's got an AI multiple on it yet. And I believe it's got a multiple that's based on what it's going to do over a number of years in terms of auto sales. But I don't think a lot of these other things have actually been factored in yet.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And I have to say again, I'm so pleased I'm moderating, because for once we can tell everybody that Herbert knew it all the time. He was there telling us.
I didn't know it all the time. What I know is very basic, and everybody here knows it, okay? Elon's an amazing leader. Tesla's an amazing company. But what you're missing, I think people are missing right now, when I hear somebody say, oh, Tesla is at $600 billion, $800 billion. And you look at its $800 billion, you look at the earnings. What you're missing is that, imagine what Tesla did in the last several months, in the last several years, to get where they are today. Now today, imagine that they have $22 billion in cash. They have, factories like basically just completely on track. Why? At this point, the acceleration of their businesses, their progress, their innovation is now skyrocketing. It's going to be, it itself is exponential. Imagine what they did when they didn't have any cash on hand, when they were still just starting building the company. Everything's in place now. Okay, just think about the AI itself. They've got a supercomputer. They've got all these people that has been working on it for years on FSD. Now that was the progress 5 years ago. Now today, it's just going to go like this. And so you haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen anything. I've been saying that every 2 years, there's going to be a brand new business that Elon's going to buy, or that Tesla's going to roll out and create. Just a year and 2 years ago, they said, we're going to do bots. Then a year ago, they go, we're going to do lithium refinery. Every year, there's going to be brand new, and it's going to accelerate. So I tell you, man, I think I'm so friggin' lucky that I am alive at this moment, at this time, with this company.
Right.
Because
I agree with
it's
you,
rare.
Herbert. And just to wrap it up,
It's
and I'll give
rare.
it back to Alexandra. For sure, I am the most conservative investor on this panel.
Yeah.
Bart, it's not even close. Go ahead.
But we still love you. We laugh about you, but we still love you. And that brings me actually to the next subject, which I would like to, bring some societal discussion in there. Thought about talking about these UFO discussions, Trump. But the first subject is Twitter. I would like to hear from all of you. Do you think Twitter will become a stock we can invest in again in a couple of years? Do you think that is coming closer? Did he do a good job in making it a profitable business? Is it something you would invest in while we were talking about Elon's companies? Jeff, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think in time it can be. I think it's been pretty public in terms of how was it valued, like, to do the original deal, what was the thought process behind it. Well, that part of it's a little bit concerning, but it's kind of like water under the bridge. It happened. So now we're at this point in time where they've kind of reimagined the company. They've taken 85% of the headcount out, and they've made it a highly efficient operation. So now you've got a highly efficient operation. You've got this brand name that's out there that has hundreds of millions of people on it using it every day. And now you got to start looking at the metrics and see how that's moving in the right direction. And obviously, hiring a CEO who has the kind of ad expertise on Madison Avenue that Linda has. I mean, this could be a potentially explosive combination between the two. Let's see how it works. It's early, but this could be. I mean, this is so complementary. What Elon did in terms of this hire, and I'm excited to see what can happen with it. But obviously, the advertisers have to come back, and the platform has to expand to do more for people. Can it be a place of payments? Can it be a place of content and sharing? And can it be a place of monetization of content? Can it be better
merchant
than the incumbent solution? So those are the things I think we need to watch out for. But it's certainly a fun place to be. And I enjoy the app. I enjoy kind of like the communities that are created. I mean, is there anything like the Tesla community? I don't think.
It's crazy, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, is there a BYD community? Probably not. I mean, I think I'll know like the competition is here when I see like the Ford Ho or the BYD Ho. I mean, that's when I'll know the competition is here. But I mean, right now, you're not. I mean, it's going to take a while, I think, for that to happen. But yeah, it's just an amazing. It creates amazing communities, and the question is, how can it be monetized going forward?
So let me, and I'll ask all of us the question. Let me ask you the question: when do you think Twitter could become a stock again? What's your time horizon for that?
I mean, if you're asking me, it's probably in the 18 to 36 month time frame, somewhere in that area. Of these, it's been restructured. Now the ad dollars have to come in, and now like, what are the other different modules that Elon is going to add technically to the business? Where does Linda see the dollars out there from a sales line pipeline perspective? I think that's going to take some time. I think it's going to take at least 18 months to kind of sort through that. But I think they're going to do rapid product development, rapid iteration, and I think she's going to move very quickly on the sales side. So yeah, you're probably minimum of 18 months. To probably 2 years at least. Which means
they will have next year with the US election, which is going to be hot on Twitter, with I think it's Olympics next year again. So there are a couple of good sports events as well then. So that may be a good profitable year. Herbert or Christian, whoever wants to go first on.
Let me go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so as an investor, you should be ahead of the game. So yes, it's early, but he clearly overpaid for it. It's not worth $44 billion. But today, if I could, I would invest in Twitter. Why I would do that today? Because everything he said he would do, he's doing, and it's you can already see the rate of innovation in Twitter, right? It's unbelievable, the new features every single week. There's something brand new. They're doing long form videos now that they weren't able to do before. They're doing long form content.
Text. Yeah.
Text. They've done monetization for creator. These are all early, but just the speed of feature release is what you're looking at. If you have a company and reduction of size, which actually makes them more productive, that alone to me goes, okay, this is a company. Now you've got this brilliant mind talking about the X.com, who's, by the way, the creator of PayPal, Christian. Why invest in PayPal? Invest in Twitter.
In Elon,
because
exactly.
Elon's vision for PayPal, I don't know if you guys know, the reason why he left or kicked out of PayPal was because he told the board, I think PayPal should disrupt banks. Yeah. But the board said, no, I think we just stick with person-to-person payments. And he said, well, you just left a ton of money on the table. Now, when Elon does this for Twitter, and you don't want to wait until he does it. If I could invest now, I'd invest now. You want to get ahead of the game when it's still considered to be cheap. So that's the risk I'm willing to take, but I just look at the rate of innovation. He's done everything he said he'll do. The advertising thing was a total mistake on his part. And he did say that he's going to make mistakes, but I tell you, he shot himself in the foot and he made a mistake and it's an issue, but he corrected it by hiring the new CEO.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm comfortable at this point. You've got a CEO that's going to, I don't know anybody else in this world that could have guaranteed you the ability to get the advertisers back better than Linda Yaccarino at this point. So I'm so happy he went that route. He could have easily hired a tech person or Mr. Beast, which I would have been very supportive of, but he wisely chose an advertising exec. This is going to be supported by advertising for many, many, many years until his big bets pay off. And right now, subscription is not going to be the thing. It's going to be a financial transaction. And so we haven't seen anything yet, and it's going to come out. Yeah. And it's going to just completely overnight change what Twitter is. It's no longer this messaging platform.
So when you say you would invest, so he bought it at 44. I mean, he and other investors bought it for 44, including a loan. Then we heard that they themselves have devalued it by 50% to 22 billion today value. Then we had a Morgan Stanley, which I think was at 15 or 16 billion, so even lower than that. So when you say you would invest, is that the level you would invest, or would you invest at 22, or would you invest no matter what because it's going to go up?
I think no matter what, but I mean, clearly 44 was way he overspent on it. He came in there with the ship was crashing, was about to fail, all that stuff. So, but now that he's right-sided it, now that they lost a lot of revenue because they lost a lot of advertisers, and so no, it's no longer worth $44 billion today. But if it doesn't die, I don't want to invest in any company that has a chance of dying. That's like, why do that? Even though it's got this great future, if it has a chance of dying, I don't want to even try to do that. That's not. I will keep my money in Tesla. But I would put in Twitter if I know for sure it's no longer going to die. Now it's going to become the X.com, financial transactions. It's led by Elon. I trust it. I think it's going to happen. And it's got the huge base. He's got the right vision. So I would invest if that's where they're going to go.
Christian. Yeah. It's not a cheap bottle. It's not a PayPal, but go ahead.
I love it. No, I used to invest in Twitter. Didn't do very well with it because I've always thought it had a lot of potential, but it, old management never really got anything out of it. But now we're seeing what potential it does have. I'm going to differ from Jeff a little bit. I think it's going to be a while before this goes back public again. I think it's going to take 3 to 5 years. I think Elon's going to take his time. And when he reissues it out, it's going to be over $100 billion market cap. I think you're going to have to pay that price to get back in. And I don't think he's going to IPO it for anything under 100 billion. But that's just my opinion. Come back.
And so wait. Yeah. So wait, would that be X.com becomes an IPO, or he would take Twitter out of it and then it would become a Twitter stock again?
Maybe relabels it as X Corporation, right? And you buy X. I don't know how they'll function it, but just in general, I think it's going to come out at a much higher valuation. So
because if it's X, then it would have Truth GPT in there as well, and then it's a completely other story.
Maybe he does.
It's X. Like you heard him say every time he refers to Twitter now, he calls it X/Twitter. He's slowly moving the Twitter brand out of there. It's going to be X.
But again, I think it'll be a while. And yeah, of course, you would, if I could get in there now, I would, if it's worth 15 billion, 20 billion, but there's no way to get in there that I know of until it comes public again. So, I mean, I guess there's rounds, but I don't mess around with that stuff. So, I think it's going to be a very valuable company, but it's going to take some time. And, I think Elon, when he did it, he's going to say, it's going to take a few years to come back out. But I do think in order for investors to really cash out that took the chance with him, he's going to have to bring it back to the public markets. And I think it'll be a company that the public would love to get a piece of. But again, I think it's definitely going to have to pay off. He's not going to bring it back out at 50 billion when he took it over at 44. It's going to have to be at least a double from there, probably over 100 billion market cap. I love the product. Just real quick, I love it. It's very addicting. I find myself on that so much, just scrolling into endlessly. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm like, what am I doing? I need to go away. Right? It's like I'm getting nothing done, and now I'm not even learning anything. Right? I'm just like scrolling for nonsense. So.
For AI
you get all our love all the time. What's that nonsense?
No, I do love it though, and I think it's a great product. I love the and the audio in direct messages and.
Oh, you do. You like?
You do.
You like the audio.
I like that.
Now let's explain that. He's inundating us with voice messages. The craziest
I have such a nice
stuff.
voice. Yeah,
you do.
So, but
you have
to
to
me,
do us some impersonators here.
That's true.
To me, do us a Kathy Wood. No. Do us a Kathy Wood.
No, not going there. That's private only. Spaces to me is the game changer, though. That product, I love Twitter Spaces. Not only is it educational, not only could it be fun, it could reach so many people, and we see it. Jeff, this just hit me. Jeff, Walter Isaacson was on there. You could have conversations literally with anybody at any moment, and that to me, no other platform has that capability. We're literally anybody could talk to anybody at any time. So, it's a great thing, and I think that product, that Twitter Space, if they could keep, and I'm sure they will, it's got some glitches, but if they can keep innovating on that, to me, that alone is worth so much for Twitter.
Yeah, agree. Jeff, Herbert, any more? Because if not, I want to move on and show you these, because a byproduct of Twitter is that we now have all this AI art shared with all of us. And I mean, I can only admit that it really gets on my nerves. I mean, I know there's some cute stuff out there, and there's some innovative stuff out there, and I have no clue how they do it, but it sort of has taken over. So I want to hear whether I'm the only one annoyed or whether you all think this is, cute and beautiful. So keep on roll. Oh, there we go. And I mean, some of it is also, dear leader Elon, which fair enough. But I just feel we're going out there all the way. And I'm always very careful that we don't become, cultish. But this stuff is getting there. I mean, I have to say this is better than going for a facelift, but there you go. So these are the ones I wanted to show here. Please, you tell me whether I'm the only one being annoyed here or whether this gets on somebody else's nerves as well.
Let me go real quick.
A lot of people know.
Oh,
sure.
Go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, not a lot of people know that I'm in that robot suit, the red robot suit that Elon plugged in.
Is that you?
I just thought I'd put it out there.
Without the glasses,
that's you hugging Chris.
That's me.
No, wait. So Eva took that picture of you and Elon. That's what happened.
I mean, it
happened.
That's
all about it. Come on, Jeff.
It was a Friday night, and I mean that's what happens. I mean, just the red suit goes on, and I get emotional. I need a hug.
Yeah.
And there you go. You give a hug, you get a hug.
So you showed some good ones, but there's even, I should have gave you some. There's even better ones. Like there's some really good art that you can make now. Yeah, I will. No, just kidding. You're doing great. So I think it's really cool, to be honest. I don't mind it as much. Now, of course, it could, when you see like a lot of it, like you're like, okay, get me out of here a little bit. But it is beautiful art. And you can do this with anything, but I think there is definitely a spot for this type of stuff, right? That really can build and people get excited, and it's awesome, right? We can do these things, and you could probably do them very quickly, and you get these beautiful pieces of art, right? And then you can make a little story around it. So I think it has its place, but of course, anything done over and over and again can slowly, kind of mind drain you. But I think overall it's a good thing, and I think it's cool to watch. Yeah.
Herbert.
I don't like them, like you. The reason is that when they first came out, they're beautiful. It's a work of art. Some of them are very beautiful. And but then it's so easy to make. Any of us can do this in a matter of seconds, and so it loses its quality, its reason to being. Then it becomes its thing where some people are just posting this thing, and it's making Elon to be whatever, God or whatever it is,
superhero.
I mean, I get it. He's somebody who's incredible. We should respect that. We should appreciate, like I said earlier, I can't believe I'm in this, world. I'm alive and I'm able to be here. But this is getting, is this modern day deity worshiping?
Yeah.
Like,
cultish.
Yeah, this is getting crazy.
Well,
cultish.
Well, let me just caveat. The worshiping thing I'm not really on board with, but I'm just saying the beauty of it and some of the messages it can portray is nice. And you can do this for anything, right? It doesn't have to be Elon art, but I know we're talking about that. Like, it's just beautiful that this new technology is out there, and I think it's going to have big ramifications that we haven't seen yet. I think if you can do this, you now don't have to hire someone to make some artwork for your little web. Like, there's things practical that this thing could do. Like Herbert just said, it's so easy, but it's so valuable, right? Because there's a lot of people that have no idea that this can be done, that they could utilize in the future. So that goes back to the AI theme, no?
I'm not impressed anymore. That's the point, right? When you saw a work of art by Michelangelo, and you're going, wow. Or this one woman who was able to create these works of art using her 2 hands and her 2 feet, creating this thing. That deserves praise. That is beautiful. When you see things like this and you know that it took seconds for a computer to create it, flip, yeah, cool. Nice, move on.
Agree, completely agree. But let's let our red metal huge hero talk. Come on, Jeff, give it to us.
I would just say at the core of this, there is a societal issue happening. And if you look at, I think, the writer's strike that's occurring in Hollywood, it's the source of that is our large language model created, AI created stories that are now be able to done with this technology. Now we're seeing the video and pictorial version of that. So you think about artists, you think about people that are doing all of this work to kind of create, this imagery, and they're doing it with, tools that have been available for the last couple of decades that have been improving. And all of a sudden you can generate kind of whatever you want via AI with some of this software. So it's going to have significant societal impact. It's already happening right now. It's already a portion and a driver in the current writer's strike with Hollywood. So I'm going to be interested to kind of watch the societal impacts. I mean, there is a little bit too much of this kind of happening, but it's all kind of a matter of opinion. I'd like to be able to go through Twitter. It's nice to actually see some art kind of feathered through it. And I'd like to see more content around, informational things, they're like, how do I get smarter about the things that I'm interested in? It's kind of there's a mixture of it. I think it's cool, but just not too much.
Yeah, good. Well, while we're on that, so last week we had this whistleblower from the Pentagon or wherever he was, military, whatever, pretending that there is a dozen of non-human built planes, starships, or whatever that we have, and that obviously the Pentagon hasn't talked about. Do you believe any of that? Obviously, Elon seemed very critical about it. Do you have any opinion about it? I mean, I look at that and I always go, where in the world would they even come from? Obviously not from the world, but so I don't believe it. I always have the feeling we're manipulated so that the Pentagon gets even more budget to do even more things, right? But I would like to hear your opinion on this.
Now, what is this? You're talking about like UFO stuff?
Yes.
What military? Okay. So I don't believe in any of that. I'll be real quick. I don't believe in anything like that. So it's fun to talk about, but I don't think there's anybody here other than us. That's just my belief.
Okay. Herbert?
So aliens exist. It's unlikely. It's unlikely that they don't exist. Elon himself agrees with that. The question of whether or not there's UFOs and aliens here on Earth, very unlikely. If you can have the technology to create this, light year kind of traveling, it's not going to like break down and land, crash or something, or be caught by cameras. And the funny meme that Elon has pointed out is like every time there's a UFO sighting, even with today's cameras, they're always still blurry. It's come
pixel
on,
goes down.
Yeah. So no, I don't believe any of that. That's and then it feeds off people's belief that there's some sort of like conspiracy and some sort of like hidden agendas. Sure, you can say that about anything, and it's probably true. But it's like, okay, how far do I take it in my own head? Like I believe it also without any evidence. So yeah.
And Jeff, I mean, obviously you come from another planet, so tell us.
Yeah, just the red suit. I think it's highly unlikely. I do think I think Herbert hit on an important point. I do think there is this conspiratorial, like what is the government not telling us? By the way, there are things that the government does not share with the population, so there is some interest with that. But I don't think it's the UFO. I just don't think that's the thing. I think there's other things that are probably worth looking into.
Okay, well, while we're on conspiracy stuff, I mean, I'm always, I'm not a US citizen yet, so I can't vote, but I will probably be able to vote next year. So you'll all have to help me find what I'm going to vote for. I think this is going to be fun. So I watched this week this deposition by former President Trump. I mean, this is crazy. For me, this is crazy on a couple of levels, and I just want to hear what you'll think about it. First of all, I never had the feeling that an incoming administration was really digging into dirt from an outgoing administration. So I think we probably have a step change here. The second thing is, if any of us four would have been doing half of what he did, and probably other people have done before him, but that's not my point, we would have been in much bigger trouble much quicker, right? So is there still this omerta of preserve whatever, and then this deposition, no mugshot, no bail, no nothing. How do you feel about that? It all gives me this very uneasy feeling that this is just not right. It's not right from the beginning and from both sides, right? I don't want to take this really political on one side or the other. I just feel very uneasy about it. Christian,
I can go real quick. So I don't. So this is not political at all. This is just me thinking rationally, right? So politics is something that everybody has an opinion on, and it can kind of get heated. I don't talk about it like that. I just look at it like this. And if we're going to just talk about specifically a former president being indicted on charges and possibly jail time, I just think, and it doesn't matter who it is. I'm not a big Trump supporter. I'm a conservative in my politics, but Trump to me was more of a populist and less a conservative. But I think he did some good things. But what I want to say is, in America, we determine who is president by elections, right? Every president, in order to do the job, has to do some things that might get their hands a little dirty. Let's just be honest about it. You just can't be super squeaky going through everything. So we have to expect that. So I believe that there's an unwritten rule in this country that, presidents are going to do certain things. He's voted out of office. We should move on and continue, right? To go back and get a former president and try to do certain things like that, to me, it's not the American system. Unless you can see something that was clearly wrong. But we can go through a lot of presidents, just in my opinion, and you could nitpick and you did this, and maybe you had a server in the wrong place and your emails were like, I'm not going to get into all that, but I'm saying I don't want that person to actually go to jail. I don't want them prosecuted. I don't want anyone prosecuted unless it's a clear violation and it's not some technicality thing. And did he do some things wrong? I'm sure he did. Did other presidents do things wrong? I mean, Richard Nixon was pardoned by Gerald Ford, right? We accepted that as a country. And Gerald Ford did that out of the good of the country. He said, look, we all know, but do we really want to put the country through a big ordeal like that? And I think we don't. I think we want to move on, and we could acknowledge certain things, but ultimately, let's move on and not play these. We don't want to put our political enemies in jail. Let's beat them at the ballot box and not at the judicial watch. It seems a little
Love
silly to me.
everything you said. That was perfect, Christian. Thank you very much. Herbert, Jeff, anybody wants to
Was
comment
not
here?
perfect at all, but
there you go. That's why I love the two of you. Tell us.
I mean, some things he said was great. You don't want to put your political enemies to prison, but no one's above the law. Everyone should go to jail. Everyone. You make something illegal, you should go to jail. Simple as that. You have to have a line drawn, and it can't be like, well, the other president wasn't put in jail, or let's do it for the good of the country. So it's okay if this president pulled out a gun and killed that guy on Fifth Avenue. Why? He's a president. That's not good turmoil. You got to go to jail. You got to go to jail. There's a reason why you have Justice Department separated from, anyways, so that's okay. But for me, if you believe that there's this giant conspiracy theory, there's a deep state, then there's nothing that can help any of us, because anything that you say is just going to point back to, well, the deep state's doing it. So at the end of the day, I still trust on the justice system. In this case, I don't know the details. I purposely not trying to stay abreast of all this stuff. It doesn't really matter to me, but there's 12 of his peers in Florida, which is a Republican, jurors that decided that there was enough evidence to prosecute. The judge that he has now is appointed by him. And so if they come out with this saying, hey, this is treason. He's actually selling real military, if that's the truth, then yeah, he should go to jail. If Biden did that, he should go to jail. It's not a political thing, but there needs to be somebody that treats both equally. The danger is when both are dangerous, which is what you said, which is, if political parties start putting other political parties into jail, that's wrong. But it's also dangerous when you don't put somebody to jail when they deserve to go to jail. So it's okay that the ex-president is making $1 billion selling info military, really, really like the strategic and military stuff. If that's the truth, then yeah, he should go to jail. Simple as that.
Yeah, Jeff,
let me interject real quick, and then we'll go to Jeff. Yeah. I'm not saying if you do something heinous and it's obvious and you commit, of course. But what I'm saying is politics is a very dirty game to begin with. And when you try to do some of these things, indict a former president and try to have a trial, politics is always going to be in the back of your head, right? So there's always going to be an angle. Why are they doing it now? Why did they never do it in the past? There's always going to be some minutia in there, and it's going to be hard because you're going to have, again, politics. Some people are going to say, yes, it's a political witch hunt, which they, and some aren't. So that's why I think it's just dangerous. And I think Herbert said it. I think that is the danger. I'd love to hear what Jeff has to say about it.
Yeah, I think there's some training program that all these former presidents and secretary of states missed around document management. When you get into a corporate job and first thing they train you about is what do you do with proprietary or top secret information? Where do you store it? I think there's some training that all these presidents missed, because a lot of people are doing this to various degrees. And so I don't know. I mean, this one's a tough one. I am in the camp of if you did something wrong, there needs to be some sort of corrective action, because you want to prevent a reoccurrence. I think of it kind of from a manufacturing perspective. You want to figure out how to prevent this in the future. How should records actually be stored? How should they be disseminated? But then I also look at these crimes. Where is the victim of this crime? Have we determined that there's a victim of this crime? Have we determined that data went from one place to another place? I think that's where the trial and all this needs to play out, and it needs to be understood, because it's not clear. If you look at the polling with the American population, it does fall mostly to party lines, but even within that, there's a lot of people that just don't trust. What's the government doing? Why is the government going after its political opponents? What's happening? There's a lot of people asking questions. You can't just dismiss all these people that are asking questions and why is this happening? Because the way the information comes out from the news media, it is very confusing, and people immediately distrust the information that comes from one source versus another. And that's why they have such low low polling. So I don't want to live in a country where this is just I have no plans of leaving the United States. I love this country. Just, I don't want the country to be in this mode of like, whoever gets out of office, the next administration comes in and starts, hammering away at the prior administration. And by the way, I think the prior administration to this actually, when there was an opportunity to go after and like go after Hillary Clinton, they actually declined to do that. Their Justice Department actually declined to do that. So anyway, if there's a way to kind of return to that, where you're like, okay, you have the proper control on documents, like you don't want presidents coming in and not, storing documents properly. By the way, I think this is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, because I believe I believe the people that are indicted in this believe that they did not do anything wrong. So I love to see how the law is actually interpreted, because all we see are pictures. There's documents in a bathroom. There's documents in someone's garage. There's documents everywhere. But I'd really like for the law to be understood of like, okay, what actually happened here? What are they allowed to do? And what should actually happen going forward? So we just don't put ourselves in these situations again.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think this actually joins a lot of international movements. I was very astonished after the 2008 crisis in Iceland. The then prime minister, if I recall it right, was actually put in prison because he did something really wrong, right? And that was the first time I recalled in my adult life that a politician had a real consequence, a criminal consequence to all that. A couple of months ago, Nicolas Sarkozy, former president of France, was indicted, and he has he can still appeal, but it's looking really bad. And if this goes the way it goes, he is going to go to prison. So I think there is a movement now that we had seen in Scandinavian countries first, but we want clean politics, right? I think people strive for clean politics, and the buy side is that actually your political opponents use this thrive for clean to clean out the opponents, the other extreme of it. So we're probably in a period where this all has to get out, and truth will slowly come to fruition. While we're on that subject, I wanted to share a Substack I wrote on France. I don't want to get into that. I talked about it yesterday, and you can all read it. It's because I don't think France is a good place for manufacturing. But it also comes down to politics in France, which are as dirty as in the United States. So just want a quick shout out for that. And that wraps up what I wanted to bring up. Did we have still something else, Herbert? I don't recall.
Yeah, just one more from me. It's like I do want to acknowledge that you've done so much work and so much influence to the Twitter community, Tesla community in general. You are quoted quite regularly by the big organizations. Here's yet another one. So this is an article by Yahoo Finance, and they quoted you. So, you talking about ESG brings it up, and it rises beyond just Twitter. And so I want to just thank you. I don't know anybody else in our community that has made a huge impact to supporting and defending Twitter at Tesla, not just talking about it, but actually reaching out, or they're now reaching out to you. And so you are, in every topic that you've actually touched, it's been a big deal. So thank you for that. We're very lucky that you're on our side.
I'm very lucky to be with you.
You like Tesla. You like Tesla. I'm so happy that you do.
I do. It's a big part of my life. It's become much too big, and Twitter has become much too big. My gosh, I'm spending every 3 minutes on the thing, but it's so much fun, right? There's so many things we share, and people tell me all the time, do you meet as many good people in real life? No, not a fraction of it. There's so many great people on Twitter, and that's going to be the future, you see. Well, thank you for letting me moderate this today. Yeah,
we'll do this every once in a while. Switch out the moderating. Yeah, I mean, you get to meet all sorts of great people, good investors, but there's also some that believe in UFOs, and so don't know. Yeah, it's all good. See you guys.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.